Hey, good morning or good afternoon. It's Monday, May 4th. Just here's a little weekly schedule. While I got your attention, being here, I just want to encourage everybody to make sure you check your hack account. That is the grade that counts for Algebra 1. Don't worry what's in Canvas. I mean, I do keep track in there, but that is not your official grade. Your official grade is in hack. So I would take a minute or two to make sure everything's up to date. Make sure if you turn something in, I got it. I think I have everything, but you need to make sure. This week, no quiz this week, and we're going to work through section 11.8 and 11.9, but just 11.8 is 2 days. So we're going to do day one on Monday with today's assignment due Tuesday evening. Tuesday, just the Canvas conference to get help. Wednesday, and a lot of times in the Canvas conferences, I'll just do going over the homework. In some cases, I'm going to do a lot of the homework problems. You can get them down there. Not a bad thing to stop by. Wednesday, same thing. We're going to do up. Actually, this should be day 2 of 11.8. And then, whoops, there will be no practice quiz. It will just be an assignment. Due by Thursday, 11:59. Same thing, Canvas conference. I did forgot to update this. Will just be a typical Canvas conference for homework help from 12 to 12:30 for questions and homework help. Like I said, sometimes we will just do some of the questions from the homework. And that's a way for you to make sure if you don't know how to do them, you get them down correctly to review. Thursday, same thing, Canvas conference. And it's helpful if you've already tried the homework before the Canvas conference to know it. You have questions on. Friday, no video or assignment. Okay, so we just got 2 things this week, 11.8, and then we're going to break it up into 2 days. All right, a couple things here. Again, while I got your attention. We're starting to have some issues with homework, and especially this last quiz, people sharing their quiz. Several people in Mrs. Napol's classes had answers that were on my quiz. The reason we know that is we had to switch one of the problems, and a lot of people in the other class basically recopied what somebody in here had. And so we know it was not theirs because the problems were different. So you do not share your homework. If you are get caught, that is a 0 for you. If you give your quiz to somebody else, if you share your homework to somebody else, it is a 0 for you. Do not put yourself in that situation. Also, a few of you, and I've tried to address some individually, are using photo math to do your work. That is going to be a 0. I have the photo math app too. I know exactly what it looks like. They don't teach it the exact same way, and that just means you're copying it and you're not sure what's going on. So photo math will be a 0, whether it's on a homework and especially a quiz. So do not do that, or any other app where it just gives you. Now you can do that as for help after you've tried it and then get a little bit of guidance. But if you're just copying it down, as a few of you have, that is going to be a 0. All right, we're going to start into section 11.8. I'll get rid of myself here. Multiply and divide radical expressions. So we're still dealing with radicals. We're going to work on multiplying today, and then we'll do dividing on Wednesday. Guided notes, make sure you go ahead and print those out, and then that'll help you follow along with what we're going to be doing here. Okay, we are basically going to use the product and quotient properties of square roots that you learned in the last section to multiply and divide expressions containing square roots. One thing that's always going to be key is we always have to simplify as our final answer. One thing I'm going to talk about here, with radicals, you can multiply anything inside a radical by anything else inside a radical, and anything outside by anything outside. But right here, you just got square root of 8 times square root of 6. We can multiply those two together. 8 times 6 is 48. Now, here's the key. Cannot leave that. That's not a correct final answer because you have to simplify it. 48 is, well, it was just 8 times 6. We know that. That's 2 times 4, 2 times 3, 2 times 2. And so in the end, how many 2's do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I get 2 pair of 2's. Each 2 goes on the outside. They will multiply back together. And then you still have a 3 on the inside. So in the end, 4 square root of 3 is your answer. Multiply 8 times 6 is 48. Got to do factor tree on 48. Got to simplify it. Okay, for that. All right, for part B, 2 square root of 5 squared. Well, don't forget, when you square anything, you write it down twice. 2 square root of 5 times 2 square root of 5. All right, now when you are multiplying, you can put them both in parentheses if you want. Probably not necessary here. You multiply insides together, you multiply outsides together. The 2 5's are my insides. The 2 2's are your outsides. So you can multiply 2 times 2, that's 4, and then 5 times 5 is the square root of 25. Simplify. All right, what's the square root of 25? You know what that is. The square root of 25 is 5. So this becomes 4 times 5. So this is just 20. And that's it. All right, real quick, I know this isn't on your guided notes, but if you have something like 3 square root of 2 times 8 square root of 3, outsides together, 3 times 8 is 24. Insides together, 2 times 3 is 6. Now, I know that doesn't reduce. I know that's my final answer. I just wanted to give you another quick case of how to do outsides together and insides together. Again, no decimals. Okay, don't give me any decimals. Don't just type it in your calculator and then read off a decimal. It's got to be a simplified radical. All right, right here, 2 for the third one, 2 square root of 3y times 5 square root of 12y. There are my outsides. Here are my insides. 2 times 5, 10. 3 times 12 is 36. Y times y is y squared. All right, that needs to be simplified. It actually simplifies really nicely, but in case you don't see it, I'm going to do 36, and I'm just going to do it over here on the side, and that is 6 times 6, and that is 2 times 3, and 2 times 3. So for 36y squared, I get 2 times 2 times 3 times 3, and I get 2 y's. Well, take a look at what happens with all our pairs. All our pairs. I take out a 2, I take out a 3, I take out a y. There's nothing left on the inside. So there is no radical left. So that's basically becomes 6y. So square root, so that is 10 times 6y, because the square root of 36y squared, we just said was 6y. And I get 60y. Okay, that'll be your answer there. Outsides together, insides together. Square root of 2m times square root of 14m. No number on the outside. Technically, there's a 1, and you're taking 1 times 1, but you don't need to write that. And you're just going to multiply insides together. Square root of 2m times 14m is 28m squared. Got a factor tree 28. 4 times 7, 2 times 2. So here's what I got. I got 2 times 2 times 7. I got an m and an m. Pair of 2's, pair of m's, they go on the outside. What is left on the inside? 2m square root of 7. That would be my final answer. Okay. Now I am going to let me go backwards for 1 second. You don't need to write this down, but pay attention. Now that we've done this. Square root of 8 times square root of 6. You can either simplify in the beginning or you can simplify in the end. What I mean by that is 8 does simplify into 2 square root of 2. Okay, so you could do that now and then times it by square root of 6. The 2 would multiply by the 1 and you would get 12, but we would still need to do a factor tree on 12. It's going to be 2 times 2 times 3 That pair of 2's will go on the outside, and you get 4 square root of 3. You still got to come up with the same answer. But the first time through, I just like to show you just 8 times 6. But if you get a little more comfortable, you can simplify first and then multiply together. Now, this one couldn't have been simplified. You could have simplified 12 here, but these ones wouldn't have worked. So there's going to be some cases where you can simplify first and then multiply, or multiply and then simplify. All right, we got a number on the outside and we got parentheses. This is just like a distribution problem. Don't forget how we did like 2 times x plus 3. You would multiply 2 times x. You would multiply 2 times 3. It'd be 2x plus 6. Similar here, but we got to use our multiplication rules. Square root of 3 times 7. All right, 7 is not inside a radical, so it can not multiply that 3. How do you write it? The 7 just goes on the outside. Just write it as 7 square root of 3. Minus, okay, square root of 3 times negative square root of 8. We can multiply those together because they are both inside radicals, and it gives you square root of 24. Simplify. 24 is 8 times 3, 2 times 4, 2 times 2. 3 can't simplify. And so what do I get here? I get a 2, a 2, a 2, and a 3. Take out the 2's, and so I get 7 square root of 3 minus 2, multiply the 2 and the 3 together, square root of 6. Now, from what we did on the last quiz, you cannot combine those two because they don't have the same insides. If they did, they both had radical 3 or radical 6, we could combine those. But we have to leave it as it is. Distribute first, always, always, always simplify. Okay? Square root of 2 times square root of 8 plus square root of 18. Everything's inside a radical. Square root of 2, 2 times 8, square root of 16, plus square root of 2 times square root of 18. 2 times 18 is 36. All right, don't overcomplicate things. What is the square root of 16? You should not even have to do a factor tree. That is just the number 4. What's the square root of 36? That is the number 6. Add those two together because they're both constants. You get 4 plus 6 is 10. You are done. That's all you need to do. Okay, 4 plus 6 is 10. So sometimes you start with square roots. You don't end with square roots. That's perfectly fine. Square root of 5 times square root of 10. They're both inside. Square root of 50 plus, okay. How do I do this? You're really taking square root of 5 times 4 square root of 3. 4 is outside, cannot multiply by the 5. So the 4 will just go, barely there's a 1 there. So you're really taking 1 times 4, which is 4, multiplying 5 times 3, which is 15. So that is going to be 4 square root of 15. Factor tree on 50 and 15. Well, 15 is just 3 and 5. It doesn't go down to any pairs, so that cannot simplify. But 50 does. And 50 is 5 times 2. I probably should put the 2 first. Pair of 5s, so that means 1 5 goes on the outside, plus 4 square root of 15. They do not have the same inside. Got to leave that. It's got to be your final answer right there. 5 square root of 2 plus 4 square root of 15. The square root of 50 plus 4 square root of 15, that's just your first step. Always got to look to simplify. Okay, always got to look to simplify. All right, take a look at this one. 5 radical 5 times negative 4. you only can multiply outsides together and insides together. The 5 is outside the radical, and there's no radical here, so you kind of treat that as being outside the radical. So you're going to say 5 times -4 is -20, but you still got that square root of 5. Plus, let me get rid of all that. Okay, same thing, same rules. 5 is outside the radical, the 6 is outside the radical. This 5 and this 5 are inside. So 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 5 is 25. -20 square root of 5. That cannot do anything. Whoops. Because this 5 does not simplify, does not reduce. 30 square root of 25. What is the square root of 25? You should not have to do a factor tree, but if you do, you get a pair of 5s. The 5 will come out and multiply the 30. Is there anything left inside? No. So really, this becomes 30 times 5. I do want to multiply that together to get 150. So that is going to be your answer. You cannot combine those together because this one does not have, the second one does not have a radical 5. Just leave that. -20 square root of 5 plus 150. Okay, that's your final answer. So for these 4, we distributed. You took the one constant, the number in front, and distributed it to both terms inside parentheses, and then we reduced. You took the square root of 5, distributed it. Took the 5 square root of 5 and distributed it to both the -4 and the 6 square root of 5. So the last type of multiplying that we're going to cover has to do with binomial times a binomial. And we have to go back to our rules of FOILing. So in chapter 7, we learned how to multiply binomials together, like x plus 3 times x plus 4. And you would do first, which is x times x is x squared. Outer, which would be x times 4, which is 4x. Inner, plus 3x, and then 3 times 4 is 12. And then we would write x squared plus 7x plus 12. We're going to use the same method. We're going to use FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. But we're going to use it with a radical. Now, this is already on your paper. We don't need to go through this, or you don't need to write this down, but here's what's going on. For the first, you take the 4. I want to use some highlighters and then erase. This 4 times that 5, which is 20. Okay. Then you do outer, which means you take the 4 times square root of 3. This is outside, that's inside. The only thing you do is write is 4 square root of 3. The inner is square root of 3 times 5. Square root of 3 times 5 is the 5 just goes on the outside. And now the last one is going to be square root of 3 times square root of 3. They get 3 because square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3 times 3 is 9. And what's the square root of 9? It's just 3. The two middle ones add up together because they both have the same inside. And then these are both whole numbers, 20 and 3. So you can add those together. There's my final answer. That's how they get that. All right, let's take a look at an example. Now, I wanted to jump into the one that I see people miss the most, just to kind of make sure that you see it right away, is if you have this quantity squared, you have to write that as 4 plus square root of 3 times 4 plus square root of 3. Cannot just square individual terms. Now we FOIL. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times square root of 3. You cannot actually multiply them together because you got one on the outside, one on the inside. That's plus 4 square root of 3. Then we go inside. Square root of 3 times 4, just make that 4 square root of 3. And square root of 3 times square root of 3, which is square root of 9. Now I'm going to take an extra step and then just rewrite that as, well, I can add those two together because they have the same radicands. I can make that 8 radical 3. And what is square root of 9? Square root of 9 is just the number 3. At this point, add 16 and 3, you get 19 plus 8 radical 3. That's what you get. Okay, 19 plus 8 square root of 3. Done. Make sure you FOIL. Write this down twice. 4 plus square root of 3 times 4 plus square root of 3. Now, if you get pretty good, you can probably just go ahead and make that a 3 right here, right off the bat. But it doesn't hurt to take this extra step for that. All right, the next one. 3 minus square root of 8 times 2 plus square root of 8. Let's FOIL. First, 3 times 2 is 6. Outer, 3 times positive square root of 8. That's just plus 3 square root of 8. Inner, negative square root of 8 times 2 is minus 2 square root of 8. And now negative square root of 8 times positive square root of 8 is a negative. 8 times 8 is 64. So here I get 6. 3 square root of 8 minus 2 square root of 8 is 1 square root of 8. Square root of 64. That is 8. If you hit square root of 64, you get back just 8. No square roots. So now do 6 minus 8 is negative 2. Plus, I don't need to write that one. Right is negative 2 plus square root of 8. That's your final answer. Hey, now when you're multiplying, and if you end up with something like 10 plus 3 square root of 2 minus 8 square root of 2 plus 2 square root of 3, this could happen. Those two can be combined to give me minus 5 square root of 2. But you couldn't go any further. You would have to leave that right there. Okay, and that could happen. Okay, there are some cases where that can happen where you can only combine two. Most of them, you're going to get 2 whole numbers and then the 2 middle terms will add up. Let's take a look at this one here. Okay, 4 times square root of 3. It's 4 square root of 3. 4 times 5. Now, they just switched the order here, but it doesn't affect anything. That's 20. Negative square root of 3 times square root of 3 is negative square root of 9. And negative square root of 3 times 5 is negative 5 square root of 3. All right, I'm just going to kind of reorder here. 4 square root of 3. I'm going to put minus 5 square root of 3. I'm going to put my plus 20. Now, what does square root of 9 equals? That just equals 3. 4 square root of 3 minus 5 square root of 3 is negative 1 square root of 3. 20 minus 3 is 17. Now, you could leave it like this, but for the vast majority, the whole number, more often than not, you're going to see the whole number written first. I would go ahead and flip it over. I'm not going to mark off. I'm not going to take points off if you do leave it like this, but it's just normally written with the constant first. So that would be your answer. So this is foiling. We basically did it 3 different ways. You got individual terms, and you got foiling. Now don't go now, and if you take 3 square root of 2 times 5 square root of 3, that's not foiling because you'd have to have a plus between those. You'd have to have a plus for that. That would be foiling. Don't make this now more complicated. All you do here is take 3 times 5 is 15. Square root of 2 times square root of 3 is square root of 6. Now that one doesn't reduce because I didn't want it to. Then you were done. So just be careful you don't. Now some people just start foiling everything. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. Homework, page 819, 2 through 18 even. Write your original problem down. Show your work. That's kind of showing your factor trees, how you break things apart. Okay. Do not use PhotoMath or any other app out there. Do it on your own. Do it the right way. And then don't be sharing your homework or your tests. You can help people. That's different than just sending them a copy. All right. Weather's starting to get nicer. Hopefully everybody's having a good, able to get their work done and keeping things on time. 3 weeks left. Let's finish strong. All right, guys, take care.